let's see. Dreaming. Go ahead and close that. Okay. I'm going to turn off our poly paint for now. Is that right? Okay. All right, so what I'm going to try and do is kind of split this guy's head into 3 parts. Right down the mouth, right under the eye, and then make a jar. And I don't want to change the vertex order when I do that, although what I might do is have a proxy where I duplicate this off, do what I need to do as far as slicing and moving stuff around, and then I'll project the detail back to this mesh, the vertex order I don't want to change, because I'm going to use, like Character Creator iClone to animate this. So let's see if I can do it. Good morning. How you doing, John? It is November already. Oh my God. Oh boy. Okay, so I got my reference up. I don't want to do any spoilers, so I don't know that I'm going to show you the reference, but yeah. Okay, so let's see. This is on subdivision level 2, so I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this off, and I'm going to hold down shift and turn off the eyeball so I just have this face. And let me look. Yeah, it goes just straight back right about through here. So there's a couple different ways we could go through and slice and dice this head up. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift. Let's try this. Let's go into knife curve, and I'm going to knife curve right back along. Yeah, right about here, I think will be good. Oh, in order to get that to work, I need to go in here and say delete lower so that I don't have subdivision history. And then as I knife curve, that should slice off the bottom and then fill this hole right there. We do need a little eyeball socket. I think that'll work. With the knife, if I go through here, obviously I can just slice, but I can also hold down Control Shift, turn on B radius, and then turn my brush size down really small so that now when I slice through somewhere about here, if I don't hold down Alt, it'll just give me that cross section, which is kind of cool. But if I go through here and slice and then I hold down Alt, that'll go through and give me a nice cut. So that's basically what I'm looking for. And then another one, I need to do another cut here, but I think I'm going to have to open up the mouth a little bit in order to get that to work. Oh, cool. Hey, we'll be work pals today. AI taking over 3D professions. Boy, hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully, I don't know. I guess putting on the, what would that be called? Where you feel positive about something. You want to, where you hope something isn't the case. My brain hasn't kicked in yet, so words aren't coming to me super gracefully, but I hope that's not the case. I hope it ends up, everything's cyclical, there's ups and downs. I hope it ends up being a little bit more of a supplementary tool. Like, one of the things I've always wanted is like, hey, wouldn't it be great if AI could do all the stuff I don't particularly enjoy doing? Like I don't mind doing UVs, but if something could like maybe get UVs done or topology done pretty well, or good enough to where I could just do a little cleanup, or maybe the AI tools I use, can kind of free me up to do the funner parts. But, but I do understand what you're saying, where it's like, actually it's kind of coming from the end result backwards, where it's like, I want you to help me with these low level tools, but you're doing the final render basically. I don't know how it's going to go. Yeah, October is already gone. I'm already behind. I've been perpetually behind since like February. Optimism, thank you. Whew. Okay, let me think about this because I need to open his mouth a little bit, I think. So what I'm going to do is hit W. I'm going to control drag down the mouth. You see how it's a very soft fall off? So I'm going to tap X to go into X symmetry. I'm going to go to BTC, which is transpose classic. That'll give me a little bit of a harsher fall off as I you know, hit W and then Control drag down. So it'll kind of mask off that upper lip. And I'm just going to go in here very nicely and just kind of separate. Actually, I'm going to do this. My move brush, I usually try to keep that a little lower. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that in. I'm going to go in here to brush, save as, and we're going to go into program files, Maxon ZBrush 2026, Z startup. No, we're going to go into Z data. Make sure you copy off this folder just in case. We're going to go into brush, Z data brush presets, and I'm going to replace my move brush. That would be in the M's, Mike. M-O, move, there it is. I'm going to overwrite this move brush, and now when I start up ZBrush, the big move brush will have a lower Z intensity. Okay, again, we're control dragging down. We're going to go in here with the move brush. We're going to just nudge this mouth down a little bit, control tap to invert this, just nudge this up. You can go in here with your move brush and go in here to auto masking, turn on topological. Let's knock this range back just a little bit to say like let's turn on number lock. Say 1.5. There we go. And then you don't even need a mask. You can just kind of go in here and move these around until you get to the corners of the mouth, and then it gets a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and smooth this. Because I do want to slice, I just need to be a little bit more precise around the mouth. It's got to be, it looks like it's got to be, yeah, perfect corners of the mouth straight back. Eyes are just under the nose and over the ear. Kind of looks like it goes through, yeah, right through the top of the ear. Okay, yeah, that's right. Okay, so we got this a little figured out. And again, this is my proxy mesh that I'm working with. My real base body is here. So I'm going to kind of mess this head up pretty bad. But then I'm going to transfer the details back to my proxy head, or back to my real head. Yes, be optimistic, I guess. Ask them about Character Creator 4 and 5. Yeah, it's been a bit since I've been in there. That's actually where I grabbed this base mesh. Oh, I should bring up resources, huh? YouTube, ArtStation. See if I'm logged in. Of course not. They always log me out. Epic. Epic. Continue. Yes. Okay, I'm good. Oh boy. 412 notifications. Cool, 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 cool. My portfolio. Okay, so speaking of ZBrush, speaking of Character Creator, go to my YouTube channel. Just on the home page here, ZBrush What's New. I haven't gotten to 2026 yet, but damn, I am right on the verge. I've got it all set up to where I'm going to sit down and I'm going to look at videos and look at documentation and start recording. I'm right there. I was right there last night and I got pulled into some weird stuff. But so ZBrush What's New playlist, Character Creator information. You can check that out. And I haven't gone to the new Character Creator stuff either. Same thing with here. Here's ZBrush What's New, Character Creator, all. I haven't updated this in forever. I haven't posted my Instagram in forever. We'll get there. But yeah, you can have those for some resources. What program do you use to make those sizzle videos after you live stream? I assume it comes with all the pre-made text animation, motion graphics. Not really. At work, so I have the Adobe suite, so I tend to use a Premiere Pro, but at home I use DaVinci Resolve. And it's actually been almost a year since I've used it to do a sizzle video. Do I even have it on here? Yeah, I do. Yeah. So DaVinci Resolve Studio, I think you pay like $200 for it, but it's like, it's pretty perpetual. So I highly recommend if you can get the free version of DaVinci Resolve, and it's pretty slick. There's a couple hotkeys I would change. In fact, let me get you some resources on that too, because that's fun. And there's also speaking of AI, I've seen a lot of AI video editor type things that can go in and do a lot of the motion-y stuff for you. I haven't looked into that yet, but that might be, if you don't like editing, I don't know, but maybe that's putting editors out of a job. I don't know. But all the stuff I do is pretty manual, but I will give you a resource. If you want to hop into DaVinci Resolve, there's a couple personalities that I really enjoy, but Casey's one of them. I'll go ahead and he's got a bunch of like, hey, get started, and like I said, you can just use the free version of DaVinci Resolve. It's pretty good. But yeah, if anybody in the comments edits stuff, let me know. But yeah, in fact, I guess I could load up this is way off topic, but you know what? We can peek maybe. Okay, so I need to slice this guy's head. Control Shift, knife curve, space bar, brush radius. I'm gonna make this actually like really small, like 1. So as I go through here, I'm gonna do a nice slice, and we're gonna hold down Alt, and that'll slice a little line through here, right across the bridge of the nose, straight back through the bottom part of that ear. I think that looks right. And then corner of the mouth. Let's see if I can go, I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna kind of loop this back down, and then I'm gonna do a little bit of a cheat, but I just need to get that corner of the lip, and then this goes along. I can use the space bar to kind of move this around. Something like this. I forgot to hold down Alt. Corner of the mouth. Double tap to do a straight line, and then hold down Alt and cut through. I think we got it, folks. I think we got it. Now let's check our math here. So I'm gonna do, if you do Control Shift, let's switch back to select rectangle, grab a little piece, and then do Control Shift A. That'll expand. What does that do? That does visibility, grow all to where it's not like vert. It doesn't touch those other verts because we did a slice. So now we have nice little slices of this guy's head. Yay. And now we can make a little jar, maybe some pickles, and maybe rough him up around the edges. Anything to keep you hooked in, like listening to music. I already do 4 hours every day, but I want to hit 12 hours. Yeah, you're going to have a sore butt. Maybe that would help. I don't do this much anymore, but get a desk that you can raise so you can stand up for a couple hours and then sit down for a couple hours. So you're not constantly, on your rear. And yeah, it kind of depends on what I'm doing and what mood I'm in. But I used to, when I started working at Tiburon, I'm gonna start cleaning this up real quick. And then I'll tell you my habits over the years. So let's do, I want to have these selectable. So I'm going to again grab a little piece, Control Shift A, and we're going to do a split hidden, and then I'm going to Alt tap this one, grab a little piece, Control Shift A, split hidden. So now we can just go through here and Alt tap. And to make this a little bit nicer when I sculpt, I'm going to try to do this. Let's go ahead and keep these poly groups. I'm going to Control tap the latest point in history to store those vert positions. I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to say half, adapt the size, not down to 0, but let's show you where that is. Geometry, Z-remesher, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0 because they're already smooth. They've been sliced, so you don't need to smooth those out. Adapt the size. If you put it down to 0, it's going to try to make everything a nice even quad. I'm going to put it down lower, but I want to, if it needs more geometry to capture some of this, I'm going to go ahead and let it. And then we're going to say keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, and we'll say half. So that's going to keep our poly groups, knock the geometry back, but give me nice sculptable polygons along this edge so it's not a bunch of triangles, right? And we'll go ahead and do that. Let's do same. Maybe same. Because half did a pretty good job. I'm just thinking I might need a little bit more geometry to hold that. And then if you do want to snap these verts back to the original high res, you can just go in here to subtool. And obviously I always do this, but make your custom menu. I'm showing you where it is in the real menu, but go to my YouTube channel, type in search, custom, and then maybe custom menu. Yeah, custom interface and menus. Actually, there's other cool stuff in this intro to ZBrush, new and updated. That's loud. Go in here. Do this. Go in here and say view full playlist, and then do a Control F for custom. There we go. So there's custom brushes. And then there's custom interface and menus, video number 42. Make that. Once you've been using ZBrush for a little bit and you're ready to rock and roll, and you know what you're using all the time, set your hotkeys and then make yourself a little custom menu like this and assign a hotkey to it. Just Control-Alt-Tap, assign a hotkey, and then you'll have all this available to you. But what I was doing was going over here to Subtool, Project, and then Project History. So we can just project history. So as we start subdividing and projecting, we can get any detail we had back. Really, I'm mostly just concerned about this eyelid area because that has to be fairly precise. The rest of it's fine. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll say Control-D to subdivide. If you want to keep these edges out here, I don't know that, I guess we do. It would be nice to have these polygroups still available. So let's do this. I'm going to Control-Shift-Tap this. I'm going to go down here to masking. Because what you could do is you could say just mask all of my polygroup borders, but then it would mask, you know, a bunch of weird stuff. So we're going to say mask my open border, bring everything else back, invert that. What am I trying to do? Oh, I'm trying to subdivide. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to, oh, I don't need masking, I need creasing. Geometry, crease. So with this open border open, I think if we just tap crease, that'll just crease that open border and leave the rest of the polygroups alone, so you don't like have to hit crease PG or anything. So now when I hit Control-D, it'll keep that line there. It won't like average it back. And now I can go in here and say project history. There we go. Now we're starting to get that lid detail that I was so worried about. We'll do Control-D one more time, project history. And it starts to get a little bit wonky. Tap X to go out of X symmetry, hold down Shift to smooth, and then just BHR is history recall. And then you can just manually go in here and use camera projection to get that detail back. So again, just Shift to smooth a little bit, and then history recall brush. And then we'll turn X symmetry back on. Oh, it looks like we got a little iffy thing over here. We can actually fix that. So I'm going to go in here and say freeze subdivision levels. Looks like we kept a little weird polygroup. I'm going to hold down Alt. Actually, I don't even think we need to freeze for this one. Let's undo that. I think if we just go down to subdivision level 1, ZBrush will allow us, let's turn off X, Alt, drag, and then tap Shift to inherit that polygroup. And then we'll just go ahead and just do a, you could actually go in here and do a crease edge. Just hold down Alt and uncrease these. There we go. Just a little bit of cleanup. Okay, so we got a nice sculptable head. We have subdivision history. We're ready to mess him up pretty bad. Cool. And then we'll just keep doing that for the other pieces here. Yes, there is cool stuff in 2026 ZBrush. I think Brush TBT. I want to say there's you know, that's a good question, because when I installed this, I actually did a quick look. I need to go through their documentation. 2026 is usually, if I go to Maxon 2026 documentation, on the install, I have ZBrush 2024, what's new? And I got you covered there on my YouTube channel, I think. Yeah, right? Let's look. Maybe I'm lying to you. ZBrush 2024, what's new? Oh, there's more. Yeah, there's a bunch in there. That's weird. Yeah. 2025, what's new? I got you covered. 2026. Oh, I hate to say it. I don't have a clue what's going on, and I hate that about myself. Got a lot of... Wish I was better. I'm getting better. I'm right there. Yeah, check out the video. I think it's cool. How to track your streams on the ZBrush channel. I think just Pavlovich Workshop. So if we go to, let me see, stream, Maxon ZBrush. Yeah, live. If you're just in the live tab here, you know, that's a good question. I guess you could just do a search in here and just do like Pavlovich, and that'll get you. Ooh boy, we go way back, huh? There's a bunch of stuff in there. You know, and also usually what I used to do is when I would do a live stream, I'd also post it to my channel, and I would, so you could easily go in here to playlist and then you could go down here to the Big Blue Genie live stream full episodes. I've been really bad about updating this, but I do have them all recorded. So once I go through, I can put them on my channel, and I'll do the thumbnails and I'll do the sizzle videos and I'll post them. But for now, that's where I have my repository of my live streams is right in there. Hope it helps, and eventually I will catch up. I will have all my recordings updated. So we have X symmetry turned on. We don't need this tiny polygroup here, so let's hold down Control Shift, Control Drag, Control W, and we'll make that all one polygroup. We'll go ahead and keep a polygroup around the ear, mouth bag. I guess we don't really need that detail, huh? Here's another thing you can do. If you want to get rid of a detail and it's hard to smooth, like if you're in here trying to smooth this and it's like pinching or doing something weird, hold down Control Shift, go in here to Sculptors Pro, and you can just knock that back. And what it's doing is just killing that geometry, literally replacing it, but keeping your polygroup, which is useful. So we'll do that. Again, X symmetry turned on. We'll go ahead and say ZRemesh same, adaptive size down, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, ZRemesh. There we go. Looking pretty good for a rebuild. On this one, I'm not overly concerned about keeping the details because I don't have anything like those eyelids. So I think we're good to go. I don't think I need to store history and project back. This one, yeah, same deal. So again, we don't need any weird polygroups, so I'm going to kind of try and combine stuff that makes sense. This one, you can see the yellow skips. So what you can do is you can go in here and say with just the yellow polygroup showing, go in here to polygroups, way down here, polygroups, auto groups. And now you have this one. So at least you can select the blue and then the orange and the yellow, and then Control W. And if you needed to, you could also do geometry modified topology, mirror and weld if you had, different polygroups on both sides. But in our case, I think we're good. So again, ZRemesh, let's do same, depth size down, keep groups, move groups down to 0, 0. Here we go. So now we've got a nice sculptural base of a head divided up, and we can start doing a little bit of sculpting. A little bit of setup. Improving what he suggests, watching courses, and just copy pasting tutorials, practicing lots by yourself. Yeah, for sure. Well, let me show you some of that too. And I do have, as far as here's my DaVinci Resolve notes, not a ton, but let me see what we got in here. We got 3D printing, rigging. I know I got ZBrush in here. Yeah, there's ZBrush, there's Character Creator. So I'm learning something new. What I'll do, so here's the thing. You're studying something, and if you want to study anatomy, you can use ZBrush for that. Boy, this one got a little bit. Let's undo that one. Let's do double. It just seems like, oh, you know what? Is this because, no, we didn't do that. So that's the base, that's the base. That'll just get it a little bit more in line with the resolution of the other two bases. Let's see, CC. Yeah, so, when I'm going in and learning Character Creator, there's the tutorial part, like you said. So what I would suggest is go through, learn the interface, learn the buttons, write it down. Helps me a lot, even if I am just taking a YouTube video and just transcribing it and going through and doing it and taking my own screenshots. It's puts it in my brain better, and then it also allows me to go back through here and just kind of search. I can do a control. I can go to their documentation and search as well, but rewriting and learning and doing while I'm doing that documentation helps, and then I can kind of remember, not anymore, but I can kind of remember where things are, and I can go quickly and look through pages and pages of documentation really, really quickly. And then I can filter all this data down into articles. So here's my body article, and then I'll go through the process and I'll take screenshots. And then if I need to do a workshop, I have an outline and I have a process. And if I need to make an article, it's super easy. More articles here. So that's basically the flow. Same thing for my ZBrush. I'll go through a YouTube channel. I'll go through a PDF. I'll go through the ZBrush Masters. I'll go through the ZBrush Summits. We got a summit coming up. So check these videos out too. and then just go through them, take notes. You know, they have brushes you can download the brushes, give them a shot. But that's more of the technical side of learning something new, as far as like the studying topics, like studying anatomy or that type of thing. That would be a mix of like, okay, yeah, go watch a ZBrush Masters or go watch your favorite artist use ZBrush, or any sculpting program. But you can always like be like, this is how they're doing it in whatever. Here's how I would do that in ZBrush. If you know ZBrush well enough, you can make that leap, and then apply their principles. But it is kind of, I guess both, it's kind of studying. You're studying how to use the program, where the buttons are, how to be effective and efficient. And then you're also studying the other stuff like, hey, what part of the anatomy and what kind of skin wrinkles and what kind of brushes would you use? And you can get a little bit more specialized in that case. So it's like, you know, if you're going to do like an alien Giger style, then you could go, you'd probably end up on Pablo's brushes, where you could go and be like, hey, he's got a bunch of cool brushes set up where you could get this look and then learn how he makes brushes, so you can kind of mix the technical and the artistic, where it's like, technically this is how he sets up brushes, which I think I got on here, something like that, right? Creature stuff. Oh boy, my ZBrush one's a little bit heavy. There you go. ZBrush Summits, Human ZBrush. Yeah, ZBrush Guides. So this is the Giger pack right here. So all of Pablo's brushes in here, I would go through and I would rewrite his documentation just to kind of stick it in my brain a little bit. And then, you know, go through the brush pack. And I don't use a ton of these, but it's always nice to have reference back to something really quickly, and I can go and find it. And I don't have to go be like, okay, where's that YouTube video? Okay, what was the timestamp? Okay, let me watch this video again. It's like I can go through and I can go to that timestamp, or I can just read. It's work, but gets it in my brain. Your brain works differently than mine, though, so your mileage may vary. Let's see. And if I skip any questions, I apologize. Just keep shouting it out. I'm not doing it on purpose. Yeah, hooked in. So when I was at Tiburon, what I would used to do, so I'm going to start sculpting, but let me zoom in on some of my reference here. Ooh. Put this back, and okay. Hold on. I have to go to my, because I haven't used it in a while, PureRef. I've got a PureRef here. Zoom cropping, Alt right mouse button. Pan cropping, Alt middle mouse. So Alt right mouse, Alt middle mouse. There we go. I just need to move my reference around a little bit. Now I can see. Okay. So, so you can see, you know, we got the split in the head. Eventually I'm going to project all of this detail back, but I'm going to allow this to give me a little bit more leeway on this kind of a proxy mesh. But I do need to soften this transition. So I can just go in here manually and just hold down Shift and just kind of knock this back. But of course, let's turn on X symmetry for now. We'll start sculpting in symmetry as much as we can, just to save a little bit of time. So we'll soften this edge a little bit, and that'll make it a little bit more pleasant to sculpt across. And this way we don't have to rely on Dynamesh. We don't have to rely on, you know, this is simply just it's almost a actually I could have brought that up too. You could use a Boolean mesh for this. If you don't want to use knife, you could literally put a scaled down, flattened cube, slice through here, use Booleans, get the exact same result. And then we'll Alt tap this one, and then let's go ahead and hit Control. So if we hit Control D because we didn't crease it, it already softens it for us. On these ones, I think it's fine. Yeah, I think that's perfect. So we don't even have to manually go in and soften these. Okay, that slices through right where I would expect. Yeah, something like that. We can start lifting up these edges. So again, hold down Shift, and we'll go ahead and Control D. So normally what I would tell you is, you know, don't subdivide past what you would be working on. You know, build up your volumes and your forms first. I'm kind of taking a backwards approach, and I have some built-in aliasing on here. Oops. So you can see as I was projecting to the low res to get my eyelids, I probably should have masked just that area out and projected, and not projected all this low-res geometry onto my high-res geometry. Basically, I projected the faceting from my subdivision level 1 or my other mesh into this one. So we'll go ahead and knock that back a little bit. There we go. And I think I have eyebrows. Hold on. Let's do an everything search for quick eyebrows. Templates. Dang. I don't have eyebrows. I need to go down somewhere, ArtStation or Gumroad or somewhere. I have, oh, here we go. Scan data, no. Hair eyebrows. I mean, I guess I do have some eyebrows. Let me see if I can just import some quick eyebrows. It's not the brush that I was hoping for, but let's do eyebrow. Eyebrow pack. Okay, this will work. So I've got an eyebrow pack, and just to kind of get a sense for some basic eyebrows, I'm just going to select eyebrow 4. Now, if I was to try to drag this out, it would yell at me because I have subdivision on all these subtools. But what I can do is I can do like an insert, just a polymesh 3D. We'll shoot this to the, yeah, I'll shoot it to the top, and now it's going to be very small because I'm working at kind of a enlarged. Let's go ahead and put this star right in the middle of the head. I'm gonna actually scale it up just a little bit so you can see it. We'll turn on transparency. So we've got a little star hanging out in the middle of his head, and we can use that as our IMM proxy. So we have X, tap X symmetry turned on, and we need to put these eyebrows on there. So we'll select eyebrow 4, and then we'll just drag out. Now, these eyebrows aren't going to fit to the head. You can try, as you're doing this, going in here to brush modifiers for the eyebrow brush, projection strength up to 100, and that will try and wrap. But you know what? I think it has to be this mesh. So you actually can do this. You can go here, even if you have subdivision, you can say delete lower. You can wrap this eyebrow right onto the mesh, and it'll do a fairly decent job. And then when you're done, you could just say split mass points, and then alt tap back here, and then hit a reconstruct, and then just reconstruct your subdivisions back. That's another alternative. If you didn't want to do that, or didn't have, I don't know, for some reason you didn't have the ability to do that, you can go back to your star, turn off projection strength, so just back down to 0, and then as you drag this out, just get it close enough, and then hit W, and then go in here with like a bend. Let's go in here with a bend deformer. No, yeah, you could use a bend deformer actually. I'm going to go in here with the bend curve, and let's add a little bit of resolution, and then we'll just take this back, and you can just use these dots to kind of go through and kind of fit this eyebrow to this underlying geometry. So to kind of give you like a lattice deformer-esque type functionality here. There we go. So now, yeah, we got some eyebrows. Is that what those eyebrows look like? Let me move all this crap. Yeah, okay. Yeah, something like that. Give us a little start. So now, back to the head. Oh yeah, so when I was at Tiburon, I would watch a ton of shows. So I would watch like the X-Files, Star Trek Next Generation. I would watch like Sopranos, just show after show after show. And I was doing mostly, if I don't have to really think hard about what I'm doing, if it's literally just like batch process, UV style, like going through thousands of heads, you know, college football head maps or pride sticker helmet UVs, and doing that type of work, it's pretty brainless. So I would just watch a ton of shows. If I do need to be focused in a little bit, if I really need to be focused in, I will literally have the Star Trek Enterprise engine noise as white noise. It just loops like 10 hours of that. I'll have that playing. And then if I need to pay attention or use my brain a lot, but I can still listen to something, then I'll just put on music. Silent Hill ambient music is like if I really need to pay attention. If I don't, then it can be something that has words. Does that make sense? That's the basics. From Spain, yeah, we're doing a little slice and dice head. We'll see how it goes. And then, you know what? I guess we could also consider doing, because what I want to do is I can animate this head in and render it through water, render it through glass, and have it animated back behind all that stuff. So that was my original plan, and then I can have like the nose smashed. So in this case, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to take my X. Well, let's not do that yet. Let's go ahead and get this crusty stuff going, and then I'm going to transfer it back to the original topology. And then on the original topology, I'm going to change the shape of the nose because I want that to be built into like a base for my geometry. This is just detail stuff. So honestly, I probably should have done the base first, but then it's not always going to be that nose. So I'm going to have two versions of this face, one inside the jar and then one where he can crawl around on little squid arms. Okay, so let's go through here and let's rugged this up a little bit. So I'm going to go in here with my trim dynamic. Let's go into solo mode, and I'm going to kind of lift up this little edge, these little edges here. We'll just kind of, it doesn't have to be beautiful by any stretch, but just kind of knock this back a little bit. And we'll kind of slice through this ear. So again, trim dynamic, just to kind of put a little bevel. We've softened the edge, and now we've got decent geometry, so it should be pretty easy to go through here and sculpt on. It shouldn't give you too much trouble. And if you need to, you can drop down in your subdivisions. So subdivision level 2 and 3, just down here, just drop this back if you need to go back down. And then same thing for here. And we are leaving quite a big gap, which I think will be problematic potentially when we transfer it back to our animatable mesh where we don't want to change the vert order. So it'll kind of be like fake. Like right now it's real. Like this is really sliced all the way through the head, and it gives us a lot of flexibility by doing that. But then also I would have to go in and set up a rig for this topology specifically, which I don't got time to do that. So that's why I got to go and use the character creator hack, which just makes it a lot easier to animate humanoid stuff. So we got this through here. Okay, good. So now I'm going to go through here with my move brush, and we're just kind of move this up and then move this down, and we'll start closing these gaps just a tiny bit. I don't mind it, leaving it a bit flared. Like this can kind of start lifting up in some areas and kind of give you a little bit of a, like maybe, this is also going to have to not be symmetrical. It's going to take me longer than normal, but it's fine. And then skin textures, we could probably, I think I can probably just use character creator skin textures. We'll see how it goes. That gets into more rendering. Yeah, normally what I would do if I didn't have to maintain, I'd want to have a nice silhouette break in a lot of these areas, so you'd have a nice, really lift this up and really lift this down and get some really crazy stuff going. I'm not going to have that much flexibility. But what I might be able to do is maybe I can take the corners of the mouth out after I transfer this detail and really move them out so that I think we can give that a shot. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on this head a little bit real quick. There we go. All right. These are kind of pretty nondescript. So I'm just going to go in here and we're just going to, if we're doing, this is detail subdivision level 3, let's drop down to subdivision level 2 and let's do just a little bit of form, just general form work. I'm going to just kind of match the face a little bit. So our lazy radius by default on our standard brush is set to 1, and that's fine in this case. We're just kind of, he's got kind of a floppy, and let's go into our clay buildup. This is actually a variant of the clay tubes brush. We'll knock that intensity down a little bit. And so basically we can use like our damn standard brush to kind of go in here and kind of carve in, you know, where those volumes are, and then go back in here with our clay brush or our clay tubes or our clay buildup and just start building these folds back in. So we'll kind of give it kind of like, remember in a Men in Black when the bug's wearing the Edgar suit, and it's kind of like the skin's wrinkling in really weird ways. That's kind of what this is. It's kind of like there's a built-in relaxed necrosis. It's not alive, but it's animated type feel where the skin is kind of loose and a little unsettling. So that's what we're kind of building in here, is just a little bit of build up like over these edges. We'll do a little bit of like inflate brush, I think. We'll go through here and we'll kind of build up the corners a little bit, so it's kind of like the flesh is kind of overlapping and building up. We'll go back to Subdivision level 3 for here, and then again, yeah, somewhere along here. You can hold down Alt as well to kind of go through here and define that lip line. Kind of pull out a little bit and then go back in here with your smooth brush. And again, hop back in with your clay buildup, and we'll just start fleshing this out. Pun intended, I guess. And then back in here on the back of the nose. And we got some good cheekbone coverage. So yeah, something. And it's not like it's gaunt or anything, so you're not going to have like a whole bunch of like, you know, zygomatic bone or cheekbone sticking out. It is kind of like a puddle of flesh kind of look. So we'll stick with that. And a lot of the personality, I'm sculpting in symmetry, but a lot of the personality is going to come from like one big open eye and one eye that's kind of shut and turned to the side. But I'll probably end up doing that in animation rather than in the sculpt. Let's see. And then this nose. Again, I don't want to change the features too much. It's just the details that we're going to transfer, and then when I get back to my base mesh, we'll change the detail. We'll change the actual, like how the nose volumes should be, I guess. So we'll go through here. Let's use our dams standard brush. We'll carve in. We'll use our clay buildup brush, our clay tubes to knock this back. We'll go through here. Yeah, we got a nice. And again, you can just top into solo mode if you want with your solo button over there. And you can just go through here and again, give you the leeway to kind of pudge those out and then go back in with your move brush and let's see, and then on the side of the mouth here, yeah, carbon, and clay buildup. You know, another good one is the Geosoft brush. So you can make this really big, and then you can go through here and use this to kind of go through and do some really nice, like rolling flesh cuts. And then again, even on this one, just hold down, you can hold down Alt. Let's soften this just a little bit here. Kind of pull up and then push back. So through here. Yeah, and a lot of this is going to be, this will be really fun to texture in like Substance Painter. I mean, you could also poly paint it too, where you can go through and just kind of model it and splottle it up. But when you get into like the material properties of the roughness and the even the metallicity, yeah, you could have a lot of fun with this one. I mean, maybe not fun. It'd probably be kind of hard to look at for hours at a time, but let's see. We'll switch back to our Damien Standard brush. We'll kind of carve in a little bit harsher. Trying to think if there's a good, because what's kind of happening, what I'm going to do actually is, let's go back down to this one. I'm going to start making it look like layers so we can kind of, I'm going to knock this back a little bit. Let's hit Control D to subdivide one more time. And then just with our Damien Standard brush, we'll just kind of cut along in here and we'll just start looking like you got subcutaneous fat and skin and, you know, that kind of look. And then we'll go back in, we can bubble it up and chew it up a little bit, but just kind of giving the illusion that as this thing goes in, there's layers underneath. And we'll see if we can capture a little bit of that. So again, we'll hit Control D and we'll just go through here. It's like there's maybe a skin layer. And we'll kind of, again, we'll rough it up just a tiny bit. You know, that saw went through pretty, I mean, I don't know why I'm doing this in November. This would have been a good October. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. But we'll kind of knock this back in here. Just kind of uneven that edge a little bit. And then again, I'm going to kind of move this up just a little bit, move this down just a little bit. Yeah, something like that. Let's see. I'm doing well. Is there a way in ZBrush to transfer UV maps plus material from one mesh to another? They're close, similar in shape with different vert count. Yeah. In fact, I think we're going to do that today. So these are close in shape. And we could even poly paint this a little bit, and then I'll show you how to transfer this to this mesh. That's basically what we're going to do. So completely different UVs, completely different topology, but essentially what you're doing is you're transferring high-res detail and poly paint to another mesh through subdivision, and then if you wanted to transfer that to a texture, which we could also do, same deal. So yeah. We'll talk about that. Let's see, corner of the eye here. Let's drop this down. Again, we're working on volume, so we'll drop down to like subdivision level 2, and then we'll do a little bit of, we'll bump this out. We'll have to move our eyebrows out a little bit too, but, and actually those eyebrows are placeholder. I think I would use like a character creator eyebrow just real quick. And then we'll go ahead and give a little bit of definition. So he's a little bit balding. He's got some stringy hair, and that's about it. So we'll go ahead and lean into that a little bit. And I wonder, oh yeah. Okay, it also looks like, looking at some of this other reference, right around here, looks like there was a little bit of another cut. So I'm gonna go in here, let's go into our soft forms brush, which I think you can get from Pablo's website. It's this one, ZBrushGuides.com, Geo Soft Forms. We'll use this to kind of cut in, like maybe a blade hit right about here. And then again, hold down Alt, and you can pull out to an edge. And another one is there's Dam Standard 01, or just the original Dam Standard. And then there's also a brush, there's a Dam Standard 02 you can download that will, you have to make your brush a little bit bigger, but it'll give you a little bit of a harsher line. So let's take a look back here. Don't really have a great shot of that, so I'm just going to guess. in. I want to see some of those layers, so I'm going to go back in with my trim dynamic brush and knock this back, and then Damien standard brush, and just kind of build in some of those layers. And a lot of this work too, I wouldn't necessarily, because when it comes to like, whenever I'm doing a live stream, I like to do stuff that's more technique forward, because it's just funner to see stuff come together and learn a bunch of techniques. This stuff is more like, yeah, there's some techniques that I'm probably over engineering. You could do things a lot simpler than how I do them as far as setup and execution. But a lot of it's just going to be sculpting. A lot of it's just going to be like, okay, you got it set up. Now just go in there and detail the hell out of it for a couple days or a couple hours, depending on how much time you got. Yeah, so we're just going to kind of go through here and just start dialing in just some skin wrinkles. Because again, this thing, it kind of got a formaldehyde feel. So I'm going to bump up that Z intensity just a tiny bit on the soft forms brush. And we're going to start just crisscrossing and building in a little bit of skin direction. I do want to soften the clay tubes brush. If it's leaving behind a lot of artifacts or layers, sometimes what you can do is you go in here to stroke. I think this will already be on, but you can turn your roll distance up. And then if you have your lazy mouse on, you can change your lazy step down to a lower number, and that'll kind of even your brush stroke out, but then you got to really knock this down. But also, my shift brush, my smooth brush, let's go look at that. Hold down shift, smooth brush modifiers, weighted smooth mode set to 0. Let's set that to 1. So now when I go smooth on this higher resolution mesh, it'll be better. If you don't want to do that, you can drop down to subject level 3, and this will smooth easier, and then go back up to subject level 4, and it'll smooth easier. That's another option for you. But you can also, like I said, go in here and just do your smooth brush. So now we can kind of carve in, and then we can go back in and kind of, oops, I messed this brush up, didn't I? Stroke, lazy mouse off. We can go back in, and you don't have to use, you can just use your standard brush. So like here's some skin that's kind of folding up right here. You can go in here and then go back in with your clay buildup brush and start working on your contours. Let's put this back up. And again, we are working in symmetry, which is a little bit of a cheat. It's not like you would have symmetrical wrinkles on his head or anything, but so now we're starting to get, oh, you know what? Jordu's shell is like, if you want to look at some creature work, let's pop that open. Let's see if he's got some artists. Do I not have artists on here? Surely I do. Hold on. We're going to look at some reference together. Yeah, I do. Okay. Art. Let me open this path and let me save this. Pin this to quick access. Thank you. Okay, so I go to my art folder, artists. Sorry. There we go. I don't want this one pinned. Artist. Goodness gracious. Okay. And then shell. I got a really fast computer. I don't know why it's behaving like this. Come on. It's on my archive, but that archive is also a SSD. I don't have anything slow on this computer. We'll let these thumbnails pop. There it goes. Okay, it woke up. So when it comes to necrosis, skin detail, there we go. Now we're talking. We got some fun ones in here. So I'll go ahead and have these. You know what? I can just drop these in my pure ref. So I'm going to say, let me steal this one. Sorry, let me borrow this one here. This one's a good one. There we go. Maybe back of the head too. What else we got? And I'll give you some close-ups of these. Yeah, maybe this whole Goliath head here. So you can kind of, there we go. So you can kind of go through here and you can see the nice skin direction and, you know, cut flesh and kind of dry, scaly skin and stuff like that. So same thing for this one. You know, a little bit of layering, a little bit of cuts and divots, and where you can kind of pool the blood and the pinks and the yellows. You can use that to your advantage. So we'll knock this back in, and we'll do a little bit of poly painting, and we'll transfer that, like I said. So some reference here. Let's go back to, yeah, that eyebrow pack. I'm not exactly sure where I got that, but look for eyebrow pack. And oh, and this too, if you've already done your eyebrow and you don't want to use your move, you can go in here with your move brush, hold down Alt. Oh, we still have underneath our brush settings, auto masking, turn off topological, so we're not moving hair by hair. And then you can hold down Alt and you can just pull along that surface normal or push along that surface normal. So that'll be another little fine tune thing you can do to kind of get that to work. Yeah, so we've got this here. Nice. I do like this little round bit here. And then this one we need to chew up a little bit more. So again, trim dynamic, we'll knock this back. Damien standard, we'll go in here and cut in our layer lines. Let's go ahead and hit Control D to subdivide one more time. We'll kind of cut that in here. And then we got smooth brush set up a little bit harsher. And then we're going to go back in with our soft brush. And we'll just kind of start dialing in. Again, just a little bit of that skin direction here. Yeah, just get under. This is so great too. Having it split off makes it so much easier to kind of go through here and be like, let's get underneath. And let's really kind of dig in. And there's also like alpha packs you could go through. In this case, I don't know that I'd need anything specific. Like an alpha pack would save me that much time necessarily. I think just manually going through here and just kind of dialing in the primary forms. And then you know what, I guess an alpha pack would be nice for like pore detail and stuff, which we might do. We can kind of, and if you can get some really good reference, like maybe some actual cadaver reference, you could probably go in here and tell some really cool stories visually, as far as like what would happen to the skin as it starts peeling away from the cartilage and how that looks. It's going to be a little bit different than, you know, the fatty layers of the body and all that good stuff. You could get really, and again, that's all it is. It's just visually. You're telling the story of the flesh and what happens to it, depending on the environment's in and how long it's been there. And if you can infuse that information into your piece, it's just going to read really nicely. And even if your audience isn't like super well versed in that type of subject matter, they'll feel it, you know, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm just moving some reference around here. Okay, back of the head. Alt X. That's my hotkey. depending on what I'm working on, I'll change my, like for instance, if I want to switch my clay buildup brush from clay buildup to clay tubes, I won't have a separate hotkey for them. I'll just go in here and just say Control Alt and then Alt B for the other one, clay tubes or clay buildup. There we go. And then this one here, yeah, I'm gonna have to break symmetry. We're getting to the point where it's gonna be really obvious this is all symmetrical. So let's drop down one. Let's go into our clay buildup. And I say that, but I'm always loath to break symmetry because I know it's just going to be more work for me, and I am lazy. Okay, and then yeah, let's go back up one. And so if I'm doing volumes, I'm probably going to stay a little bit lower and just work on just the big forms. And then if I'm doing detail work, I'll hop back up in my subdivision levels. Usually what I would say, I think I brought this up before, is like, hey, you know, do your volumes first, get those perfect. Just a little clay brush is really all you need. Clay brush is really good. There's some, there's a really good BC, which one is it? Brush. I don't use it that often, obviously, but clay brush is good for just kind of building up little nodules. But there's also one that's like a wet concrete. Soft clay might do it. Soft concrete, maybe. There's another one too. Check out all these brushes. Go through and just kind of use them. There's some that are really, really nice. And some of them also work really well with the Sculptors Pro. So if you can do it on a proxy mesh and just use Sculptors Pro, you can get some really nice stuff. You're going to see I'm not getting really crisp detail around here, but what we can do is we can hop back in once we get this to a certain point. So let's go through here and, so I want to build up this flesh a little bit along here. And these things are kind of looping in and out. And now we're not doing anything crazy to this shape, but if you need to go and unlumpify your contours, you can just go through here with your move brush, and then hop back in, kind of carve these back in. But we can also use the contrast brush. So once we get this to a decent stage and we're just like, we just need to push this a little bit harder, just BC brush contrast target or delta. And you can just go through here and you can just kind of, if you need a little bit more wrinkles here. Another thing you can do is let's grab just like this little piece here and let's go into our BC brush cloth. We could do like a cloth hook maybe. You can go through here and you can kind of bunch skin up. This is going to be kind of not great. Let's drop down to subdivision level 3 and let's also go down here to, what's a cool thing we can do? There is geometry. It is called, what am I looking for? It is that thing where you, thick skin, turn on thick skin. Well, I guess we have to have it all showing, don't we? Turn on thick skin. You can change the thickness. This is how much leeway you're going to give your brush. So now if we do use the cloth hook, you can kind of push this skin along the surface like so. So you can kind of go through here and use a big old brush and you can kind of push this back and or you push this down. I'll usually just go in here with like my pinch brush and then underneath my elasticity, you can crank simulation iterations. That's for any brush. You can turn that on. And then as I go in here and pinch, you're going to see it's kind of taking some, it's kind of wrinkling the skin. And we have thick skin turned on. If we turn that off, it's going to give me full leeway to do whatever I want. If we turn thick skin on, it's only going to allow me to manipulate kind of the surface layer, if that makes sense. So you can kind of go through here and you can use this to kind of bump up the contrast, or you can maybe, you can kind of use both. This will be good for what we're working on, which is kind of a formaldehyde skin, where it's like, and it's kind of like, again, moving and it's not alive per se. So this might work out in our favor, the ability to use cloth simulation for this type of skin work. But we can go ahead and turn off thick skin here. Set it in level 4. And where are we at here? So in level 3, smooth this back down. And we'll smooth this back down. Okay. Back in the next. So we'll just go really quick. So big old brush, X soft forms brush. We'll go through here, and we're just going to get some basic skin direction. And this is like a I'm considering this a creature sculpt, not like an anatomy study or anything like that. So I'm going to push a little harder on skin direction and skin details and really make those pop. And also, if I'm going to be doing like a lot of of subsurface scattering or anything like that in my render, it's going to soften a lot of those details. So I'm not afraid of, and you could do this all on a layer if you wanted to as well. But when we transfer it over back to the original mesh, maybe we'll consider doing, I'm usually pretty lazy about that too. I don't use layers a ton, but if you're in production and you want to be careful, in fact, usually what I'll do instead of using layers is if I'm not changing the vert order, I'll just use morph. I'll save a file, and then I'll, again, we want to break symmetry. I'll save a file with the vert positions that I want and just use that as use morph history to morph in and morph out, as opposed to using layers. But maybe that's just me. Okay, I really need this image to be bigger. Let's do Alt-Shift. I hate that I can't remember things. Crop image, Alt-C. There we go. God, I'm a mess. Okay. Sorry, just trying to get some skin direction reference here. And we'll get there. And then here, we can do a little bit of hanging skin, I think. Actually, along this whole border too. This is part of the storytelling here. So this will be a little flappier. Now this is going to be connected to an entire head, so I am going to have to be a little tricky and maybe have some digital prosthetics to make it, because again, the whole body, because I can't change the vert order on the other mesh. So the whole body is going to have to be visible technically, but I can go in and like hide it with opacity maps and then maybe cover like the bottom of the neck seam with like I can weight, like I said, a digital prosthetic, so it'll kind of stick. That's kind of what I did. If you look up what we're talking about doing is similar to this, the Prince Rupert Museum, where basically there's a whole body in here. I just took some photogrammetry at a museum and then processed it and cleaned it up. So here's the whole body mesh. It's all visible. So I can animate it like this, give him some stone expression wrinkles, weight. This hair is all, a separate mesh, but it's all weighted to the head. So I can have, the head's the only thing that's really animating, and the rest of the stuff's just weighted to it. It's not part of the body mesh, obviously. So now I can kind of control the face. So that's basically what we're doing for this eventually, only it'll be a head in a pickle jar. Oh, let's go back to the... Oh man, you're absolutely. So when I go to my YouTube channel, let me make sure, hold on. Yeah, Silent Hill soundtrack or Silent Hill ambience. And I'll just go through this, and this will just be playing in the background for 10, 12 hours straight. If I need to focus a little bit, that's usually where I'll go. Yeah, making a sliced up head. Yeah, contrast brushes does a good job. Yeah. Cool, great to be back. Sorry I've been absentee. I'm trying to get back into the flow. Yeah, thick skin. And if you ever have a question, hopefully if I can get my S together, once I get to the new stuff, you can always go in here and just do a thick skin search, and it'll take you through, like, and you can also see in here, like, hey, ZBrush 2021.5. You can go to that playlist and watch the thick skin basics. It'll take you through all the thick skin videos. Okay, we got this, we got this. Let's go back in here. Let's look at the around the ears. Yeah, we need some more wrinkles. So let's go to Southern level 4. And again, we're just doing a little storytelling. We're gonna carve in first, and then we're gonna follow that back up with a little skin thickness. And then, okay, so this big gash right there. Let's take a little closer look at that. Okay, that is just kind of an open wound. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in here to, let's go into our clay tubes or clay buildup. I'll kind of knock this back, and we can kind of put a little goop down in there. And then we'll use our damn standard, hold down Alt, and we'll pull up some skin along the edges here. And we'll go back in here and knock that back. So again, we're just getting that illusion of layered. And then in here, like I said, we could do a little clay brush. I wish I could find, what am I looking for? It's like I use it for wax, like dripping wax and like pooling wax. And I can't find it. It's a regular old brush. I don't think there's anything, I don't think I need to, I can just never find it. Elastic, fold, form, soft, inflate. You know, we can kind of use inflate brush for this. So let's do the inflate brush, but let's really crank up that intensity. And then as we go through here, you know, that'll kind of give us a little bit of a bubbly kind of look. Actually, I think clay brush is probably a little bit better at that. And again, Damien standard brush, really pull this out. And back here, skin direction. So obviously where you've been, oh, and actually we could do expression wrinkles. This is a fun one. So if you have the face, what is it? Yeah, what are expression wrinkles? Yeah, the Face Tools plugin for Character Creator, you can go through and do kind of make your own custom expression wrinkles. This would be really fun to do on this one. I don't know if I'll have time, but you can go in here and make custom expression wrinkles so that your character has very specific expression. So as I'm building in, I'm kind of building in like memory wrinkles. So over the 40, 50 years that this person's been moving their face, it'll build in, like I said, these memory wrinkles. And then as the face does goes through, and like even my face, you know, I'll go through and I'll do reference shots of my eyebrows going up and what my skin does. You do the exact same thing, but make it bespoke for your character. Really, really cool. It's a ton of control and give you a ton of personality. So doing stuff like this would give you a lot of personality as well, because obviously he's going to have some very specific skin wrinkles just due to the nature of how he's looking, what's happened to him. So as he continues to animate with his maladies, let's see. Like I said, we'll get to a point where to transfer all this over, and then, you know what, I'm going to wait till I'm going to wait to break symmetry until I transfer this over to the other face. That's what I'm going to do. That's my story. It's not that I'm lazy. It's that I want to wait. Okay, we'll dig this in a little bit. And we'll kind of radiate these lines out the corners of the mouth, and then those will kind of play back in with the dividing line in here. So you can also use your clay brush to kind of knock down a corner as well. You want it to be a little harsher than your trim dynamic. Then, let's see, a little clay brush, let's say. Sorry, I've got a lot to say here. So this is, I don't know, I don't want to do any spoilers, but this is from a TV show, Welcome to Derry. And I thought having a sliced up head that I can animate and stick in a jar would be really fun, and a really fun thing to render and figure out. So we're setting up the base for that, basically. I don't know when I'm going to have time to go through and do the extracurriculars, but if I do, I think I will. I think I will have, I'll be able to kind of go back to not putting all of my time into 100% of work, but have a little extracurricular time. We can go through here and we can go through the process of putting this over into Character Creator and animating the head and all that good stuff. So we've dug in, and now we're going through and building out a little bit of the more exaggerated wrinkles here. Yeah, what are these doing? These need to be a lot more. He's got a lot of story to tell here. So we got our eye bags, but right along here. Okay, preferences. I need to turn that off. Interface. Z modeler, navigation. Enable right-click pop-up off. And then if I'm going to store my config, I want to make sure that only the menus I want open. So geometry open is fine, thick skin is not, elasticity is not, brush, regular, preferences, config, store config. So that way, every time I start up ZBrush, I can't do that right-click pop-up. I don't mind right-click navigation, but I never use that right-click pop-up. So I usually turn that off. All right, so now we got some eye bags going. And we'll be a little bit more deliberate here. And then, yeah, right along the cheeks. So again, we're just alt tapping through the different subtools. And then we'll do a little bit of poly painting, and then we'll do the final transfer over to my other mesh. And then we'll break symmetry, and that'll probably be where I'll run out of time, but that's okay. Maybe I'll do a part 2. And that's the only other thing too. And like every live stream for the past 8 or 9 live streams, I've been like, oh, I'm gonna definitely do more live streaming. I'm gonna live stream on my channel. I'm gonna get back into the what's new stuff. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then October literally disappeared before my eyes. I don't know what happened there. I had big hopes and dreams, and it's so easy to get busy doing other stuff. It's not bad stuff. I enjoy what I do. It's just, I enjoy this stuff too. Super fun. And like we were talking about, just BC brush contrast, delta brush contrast target. Oops, brush contrast target. Kind of spiffy these up a little bit. Use your wrinkle brushes or your cloth brushes. But now I'm getting antsy. Now I'm like, I do want to spend like 45 more minutes just doing neck wrinkles, but I know that would not be a super fun live stream. But also, we do need to transfer this back over anyways, so it's totally fine. So we go ahead and call it a day. And then I do want to show how to do the like UVs, if we wanted to do UVs on this and transfer to texture, or just do a poly paint. We could talk about all that. So a little bit more technique-y stuff, but all good, all useful. So we've been working on a proxy, and now it wouldn't be super difficult to go through and UV this. So for example, this top head here, we'll go into Z plugin, and for all of these we have 4 subdivisions, right? So we'll go in here to UV master, we'll say work on clone, and now we have all the poly groups we kind of want. This would be a nice to have on one poly group. If you want to consolidate, you can be like, hey, you know what? Let's put both of these on one poly group. We can put both of these. Actually, these can probably all be one poly group, right? Yeah, maybe the ears on a separate poly group. So yeah, it looks pretty good. So we'll say unwrap with symmetry and polygroups on. And then when we flatten, that's our result. We can do even more work if we want to go through here and like slice up the back of the head, or slice, be more specific with our UVs. But we can say, let's copy these UVs first. Then we'll go back to our working file and we'll say paste those UVs. So now this, if we go down to UV map, this one, if we go into solo mode and we morph UV, hey, now we got UVs on here. And now if we want to say, you know what, I can go in here to create, unwrap. We're going to say crease our seams. So it'll go through and put creases where our seams are. We'll drop down to subdivision level 1. And now if we want to be very precise about, let's go into our Z modeler brush and hover over an edge, hold down space bar, and we'll change this to crease edge. Or even faster, hover over a point and say crease shortest path. And then we can just click on this point here, and then maybe this point here. Oops. This point here. Wait, where's the middle? Here. And then this point here. There we go. So that'll put a slice right up the back of the head. Was this looking a bit awkward? I don't remember. But now that we've done that, when we go back down here, we can say unwrap, and it'll keep symmetry, and it'll unwrap our creased edges. So now that we added a new creased edge, if we go ahead and morph UV, you can see that it split the back of the head. So you can use creasing to determine exactly where your UV splits are. And in fact, if you don't want to sculpt, you can totally sculpt in this view, but if you don't want to, you can turn bump down to 0, and that'll just give you basically just straight up UV information. We'll turn that back up to, what was that at, 50? Yeah, that's another thing too. If you want to bring in a texture of a human head, you can go through and you can flatten it out and then paint right on that human head. In fact, I want to say that was a ZBrush 2021. We did that in, yeah, this one. ZBrush 2020, what's new? I think we flatten out. Oh man, we did all sorts of stuff. Yeah, this one. Morph head UV texturing. So you can bring in an image onto your flattened UVs, and you can literally just, oh, this guy. I forgot I did this guy. He's similar to what we're working on. My commander with the missing jaw. Yeah, go through here and paint right onto the head here. There we go, cool. So we've got UVs. Now, if we wanted to texture this, subdivision level 4, I'm going to go ahead and, man, maybe we want to sample. Most of this is super color corrected, although, yeah, that's fine. I'll just guess. So I'm going to go through here. We'll do like a kind of a dark base. I have a hotkey set up for color, fill object, Alt Control Shift F. So I can go through here and we can change. So now this is filled in. And now I go in here. Let's do a standard brush with a, do I want to do spray? Let's keep it dots, but let's switch her alpha out to alpha 20, maybe a little softer. Let's do alpha 23. We'll tap C to sample, and then we can just go in here and we can like make this a little more flesh toned. And then we'll say RG. Actually, keep your standard brush alone. You can go to BPA for your paintbrush, or you can go to your standard brush and clone that off. So that way your standard brush will not have any weird stuff built in. So we'll say RGB for this brush. And then we'll just kind of build up our layers. Let's turn off, tap L to go out of lazy mouse. And this is where, let's turn off dynamic because we're working at a weird scale. So now you can go in here and you can start building up your mottling layers. And again, you could do all this in your texture program of choice too, but just to kind of show the poly paint transfer, we'll do this as well. So we'll kind of build this up. Let's switch this over to drag rect, and we'll go to this kind of veiny pattern alpha 22, and we'll do some like dark blues. No, not that intense. We'll drop our RGB intensity down, and yeah, so we'll kind of do some this. We'll do some green. I'll do some baby blue. What else we got on here? Magenta. That's a good one. So that'll kind of just be sitting under the surface. And then we'll go back to our alpha 23 dot stroke. Again, we'll sample here. And we'll push this over into the oranges and just lighten this up a little bit. Also, as you're building up skin, you have the different zones of the face. Not that like, and we can also hue shift this, because right now we're like making this as a living human, but we can go in, well, semi-living. I wouldn't say this is a super healthy human that we're building up, but you can go in and you can do a hue shift. So over here underneath poly paint, you can go in and like adjust colors, and you can go through here and change the saturation and RGB intensity and stuff after you've already been painting. So stuff to keep in mind. And all the wrinkles, we're going to ignore those for now, but eventually we will go back in and we can mask by cavity, mask by, there's a couple options we can try that will allow us to, oh, and we're on skin shader too. Skin shader also, so we can see our poly paint a little bit better. And then what else? So yeah, blood pooling. So in this case, it would be something like, you know, you want to keep your red tones around the eyeballs, and then your golden zones in your forehead, and then your blue zones in your neck where you kind of shave. And then also like the bone underneath the surface, you probably want to keep a little cooler. So if you've got like your zygomatic arch or your orbit, should probably have a little bit of a cooler tone underneath it maybe. And then your big veins too. You go through and you can kind of sketch in, if you have like modeled, like literally like sculpted vein detail, you know, put a little blue in there, that kind of thing. And it really is just like building up layers and layers. And while you're doing that, whatever story you're telling as far as the wear and tear on the skin or the sun damage on the skin or the age of the skin, it's all kind of built into what you're making. So let's go ahead and turn off this. In fact, we don't even really need that. That was just kind of a thing. You can say delete. Oh, we got 2. Yeah, and in fact, while we're doing this, we can go here and we can say adjust colors. And let's zoom, let's frame it. We can say crank up that RGB intensity, and then we'll knock it back a little bit with a little bit of a and then obviously along the edges here we'll do, let's hop out of that dot stroke, and we'll just go, we'll do some purples. And some blues. And then some like really deep reds. Let's go in here to solo mode. Right along here. And obviously right in here too. And then let's be a little more aggressive with some of these reds. And this is one of those things where you probably do need, like I would probably start rendering while I was texturing. So basically I'd end up in, you can transfer your poly paints to your UVs. So at any point you can go, since you have UV map, we'll set this 2048 or whatever, and we go to texture map, we can say create new from poly paint. And you can either bake your poly paint data as vertex color in Substance Painter or whatever you want to use the texture, Marmoset or wherever. And then you could use this as a base to, modify if you're so inclined. Let's go ahead and do, and then you can just transfer, or you can just transfer this as a texture map and send it over and start use that as your base as well. But we were going to, oh yeah, masking. So we're going to go in here to mask by cavity. Curvature. Yeah, we'll mask by curvature. Cavity's not bad, but this is more what I'm looking for. And then on the mask adjust, let's go in here. Let's do a reset, and let's pull this backwards and hit apply. Nope. Let's pull this forwards and hit apply. All right, now we're getting somewhere. So maybe, oh, and blur will turn off. We don't want it blurred. There we go. So we got kind of these cavities masked, so we can control tap to invert this. We can turn off view mask, and then if we want to fill this in with like, yeah, dark red or whatever, go back to our paintbrush. We can go in and kind of fill in those cavities with a little bit of a darker color here. And feel free to storytell here too. It doesn't have to be, we might need to subdivide this one more time. We'll transfer and then we'll subdivide on our other mesh. But that doesn't necessarily mean like, hey, fill this in with the same color. It could, it could be a little redder in here and a little oranger up here and a little cooler out here. Whatever makes sense for the story you're telling. Tell that story a little purplier, like I said, a little cooler in these wrinkles. And then we can also control tap to invert this and then turn off view mask. And then as we're going through, we'll turn on our, so now as we're painting, we'll leave our, we'll hit C to sample. We'll go in here a little lighter, a little paler. And then now it'll leave our wrinkles alone. And I would go back in. You can see it's kind of aliased. This is where I'd like subdivide one more time. But yeah, we're moving fast. So now we're popping some highlights here. We got some nice modeling of the skin. You can go back in and add some more veins underneath the surface and then paint over it like we're doing. Whatever makes sense. And I was pretty haphazard. I won't say we. I did it. You just watched. So anything bad that's happening is my fault. But you can go back in and, like I said, adjust the saturation, adjust the colors. Be a little bit more mindful of where you're putting in the greens and the blues. I just kind of did it randomly, but, you know, tell the story you want to tell. And this is basically it. And then you can just keep layering up and layering up and layering up and whatever. And then right through here, we'll go a little cooler. Normally on like a healthy human, this is where I would put like blood pooling, so a little ruddier and a little redder. But since he's kind of dead, I say kind of. Spoiler alert. And then while you're doing this too, working in this control drag to unmask, going back in with your sculpting brushes and, you know, kind of pushing this stuff back or sculpting it back out, getting it to kind of sit nicely with your poly paint. But again, we could have used another, I think, level of resolution here, obviously. Go back in with our clay brush, make sure RGB is off for our clay brush now, because now we're just doing a little bit of surface sculpting. And if you ever want to turn your poly paint off, just hop back up here and just turn that off, switch that back to white, switch your material, and now we can kind of see what we're working on. So now you would do this for all 3 layers. You could have UVs or not. In this case, I don't think it really matters that much. But when we finally, since we're coming up on time, when we want to transfer this back to this head here and kind of build in the details that we're doing, what's the best way to go about that? There's a couple different ways. I think I'm a history recall brush guy and a history project. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold on shift, turn off all these eyeballs. We're going to show this one, and this one. We'll turn polyframe back on. And just for these other 2, just to transfer this, I'm going to tap C. You know what? Let's go here. Yeah, I'll tap C to kind of grab that little mid-range. Here, we'll switch back to skin shader. We'll say BPA. Yeah, we'll do MRGB, and we'll do 100% color, fill object. Alt tap this one. Color, fill object. And again, you can just sample from any other section that you've already textured, and then you can just, you know, continue to build up, etc., etc. So really quickly, just to make sure when we transfer, you know that colored information is actually transferring. We'll go through here, and we'll also do our dark skin here. So right along here. Oh, you know what? I'm so used to just hitting Alt S to go to my standard brush. I'm just gonna, again, I said don't mess up your standard brush, but I'm gonna mess mine up. Oh well. Big reeds, mouth bag, dark. Mouth bag, dark. Okay, so we've got some poly paint information. We've got our depth, our sculpt depth, our cut lines where we want. We had tons of flexibility to go in, and we can always hop back and do more work on this, but let's go ahead and transfer what we have to our other head. This we don't need. This was just work on clone for a UV mask. We're going to delete that so we don't get confused. everything, let's go all high. So we have all the detail that we have for these. And then I'm going to go in here and we're going to say merge visible. So I'm going to make these all one mesh here. So now so here's our working meshes, and then it just put a merged version out here. I'm going to control tap the latest point in history for this merged version. And then we're going to hop back in here. We're going to go back to this base body, turn everything else off but this base body. And again, this geometry, I can't change the vertex order. However, this does already have a poly paint on it, which I guess I can keep. So we want to project this to our history, and I slice through here. So what I'm going to do is we'll just take our mask lasso. I'm going to mask right about here, maybe. Let's see how this works. So we stored the points in history for this merged one, right? I'm going to invert this. I'm going to do this is going to get a little bit weird around the mouth area. Luckily, we have polygroups here. So I'm going to say, let me in here to this. So this here, I'm going to do Control-Shift-X to expand out to about mid-lip. Yeah, right about there. And then I'm going to mask this. So I've got the inside of the mouth mask, I've got the bottom of the head masked. The rest of the eyeball should be okay. So with all that visible, I'm going to go in here. Let's do project. We have those points stored in history. So we're going to say project history, and yes, we would like to transfer the poly paint data. It's a little harsh and it's not very controlled. So what I'm going to do is make sure I'm out of X symmetry, BHR history recall. I've got RGB up to 100, Z sub up to 13. I'm going to go through manually at subdivision level 2, and I'm just going to project, let's do skin shader. Doesn't seem to be grabbing my poly paint. You know, we can do the poly paint separately. I'm really more concerned about the mouth, honestly. And the good news is, like, once we get this transferred, I still have polygroups on the original, on this transferred head, so it should work pretty well. And this is only subdivision level 2, so there's not a ton of geometry here. We'll probably have to go up to subdivision level 5 or so. We could also, for cleanup, let's do this. Instead of, yeah, okay. You could go through manually and do this. We'll do it a little bit faster. I'm going to let's go Control D to subdivision level 4. I'm going to again mask about here, and then we're going to grab invert that mask. I'm going to grab this mouth bag, mask this. Actually, we'll do Control-Shift-X to expand, mask this. And then I am going to go down here and we're going to do a morph target, store morph target. So that'll give me a little flexibility to go in with my morph brush and do a little bit of cleanup work. So now that we've got this, we can go back into project history, geometry, and color. Yes. Okay, so we've projected and we've got our poly paint detail, and we have our sculptural detail. And if I need to do a little bit of cleanup work, we'll go out of X history, or out of X symmetry, sorry. We're going to go through here and smooth, and then BHR history recall, and we'll just manually go through and use the history recall brush to kind of go through. And Man, we need more resolution, huh? Let's hit Control D one more time. Let's do BHR. Yeah, it's right along there. That's that cut line. And this already has UVs on it, and it's getting the poly paint data. So if I did go through here, and we say, if I do this and I do Control Shift Q, that'll poly group grow all. And now if I do a UV map, morph UV, you can see these are completely different UVs, but we're transferring the poly paint data and the sculpt detail to our new head here. Yeah, so BHR. So you could go through and, like I was saying, you could use project history to do it just like a bulk projection. And then if you want to go back in and clean this up a little bit, you could do BMG, that's your morph brush. Oh, you know what? We stored it on 4, didn't we? We got to go back down to subdivision level 4. We'll turn off RGB. And we'll use our morph brush to kind of go through and any areas that kind of messed up, which in our case I think is only the mouth. Yeah, we're in good shape. And that's about it. Yeah. So transferring our sculpt detail, and now if we want to start sculpting just on this mesh here, we can go in here and we can turn off poly paint. We can go back into this color, and this is where we can start going through and doing a little bit of, breaking symmetry, doing our final cuts. It's not going to be as fun because, again, I can only do so much with our ability to not have like separated meshes because again we have to maintain the vertex order. But if we wanted to do the jar flatten nose, we could just go through here and just pull this back. That'll be my jar flatten variant. So now when I put his head in the jar, that's another thing too, we could do that real quick. Let's do an insert cylinder. You know what? Before we do that, let's delete that. Let's go and grab a cylinder here. We'll say F and initialize. We'll say 24. Oops. V divides low. There we go. And now if we go in here and we say insert that cylinder, or insert, it's the one I was messing with. There we go, that cylinder. We can use this as a base. So real quick, if we wanted to go through here and say, let's go into transparency mode. This will be the bottom of the jar. I'm going to hold down Control Alt and move this up. And we need this to taper in right about here. So I'm going to go through. Let's do a poly group by normals. I'm going to hold down, hover over a face here. We'll do extrude. Nope, hover over a face to extrude polygroup. And we'll do polygroup island. So as I pull this up, that's the breaking point, and then I want to scale this in. So we'll do a scale. Edge loop complete. We'll scale this in. And then the lip. Is this right? Yeah, something like this. We'll extrude this up. There we go. And then we'll put a lid on there. So something like this. And if we want to soften this out a little bit, we can say bevel here. That'll kind of round that out. And then we'll soften this one out too. And in fact, we could even go in here and we could say inserts multiple edge loops, interactive elevation. So as I go through here and we want to round this out, we can just kind of pull and drag up and down. We can kind of round this out. Soft transition, we could pull this in and round it out like so. So you can kind of just go in and dial in the roundness, and then as it comes down here, actually, we'll put a bevel. Looks like there's a soft fall off here. And then, like I said, we could do an insert, multiple edge loops, pull out, round, like so. And then if we want to, we can duplicate this off. I'm going to say, we probably want this ring, right? So we're going to say polygroup, polyloop, this one. We'll isolate just this top piece here, delete hidden. In fact, we don't even need this. So we want to put a jar. W, what are you doing? What's going on here? Get up here. So we'll scoot this up a little bit. If you go to Unmesh Mesh Center, you can hold down Alt and you can scale along this axis. So it'll just basically scale that out. And you know what? We'll scale this up a little bit. And we'll go ahead and cap this, close, convex hole. And in this one, let's go ahead and turn off. We can leave the optimal curvature on, but we'll go ahead and cap this. This one has some edges in it, so we're going to go in here. We're going to say insert multiple edge loops, like so. And then we'll go insert multiple edge loops, interactive elevation, and we'll pull out. We'll kind of just bump, bump, bump. There we go. And then this bottom one, that's fine. I suppose to make this easier, you'll never see the inside of this probably. I'm not going to unscrew the lid. So we'll go ahead and just say, there we go. We'll do a group by normals. And let's go in here. I'm going to merge these down. And then we'll, I think it'll be more like, because the ears are going to be folded in a little bit. The nose is going to be folded in a little bit. And we can kind of fudge this too. I can go through here and with our move brush be like, you know what? Head, a little tighter, face, relax this just a little bit. Again, remember you can hold down Alt and push along there. There we go. Something like this. And then the rest of this will just be hidden. And then we would just go in here and just continue working on this. Go through here and just clean it up. And again, if you wanted to, if it's easier to work on, you can just hop back down here. These three, you know, and flesh these out first, and then use this as your transferable through history projection or whatever. Let's see. Good to be back. Oh, thank you. Sonar 2020. Thanks for watching my videos. From Argentina, man, you guys are all over the place. I was in boring old Texas. Guess not too far. Yeah, so the ZBrush B, so Alt X is my hotkey. That's the GeoSoft forms. And if you watch the ZBrush Masters that we talked about earlier, I think this one right here, Geo talks about. I'll link you all of that again. So this one here, watch these. And then if you want to like go through and do searches for things like thick skin or anything weird that you happen to see in ZBrush, hopefully, again, if I can get caught back up, you should be able to do a quick search in here on my channel and find out what those things do. And then same thing on my ArtStation page. This one's more like if you want to go, like here's the what's new stuff. It's a little bit easier to see and easier organized. And then like project based. So if you want to go through here and be like, hey, making a Fallout suit, click on here. Oh, cool. How do you do that? Well, you can go down here and there's the, oh, I forgot I got this guy too. We need to animate him. I got the whole cowboy done. Oops. I guess I got to finish him too. Anyway, that's more project based stuff. So we'll put that in there. Let's see here. Yeah. Fan art modeler. That sounds like me too. I know I want to go to Korea. That sounds like a cool place to visit. Wolf Tracker. ArtStation's YouTube channel. Texturing artist. Something a generalist and beginner. I suck at I'm suck at anatomy. I'd like to use base mesh. Use it too. Your opinion on using it? Feel guilty. Yeah, I mean, study anatomy. That's a lifelong ambition. So if you want to start with a base mesh, I do out of necessity just for like animation purposes. Because again, if I'm going to do a vampire, I can sculpt a vampire from scratch. It's not a huge leap, but to start with a base mesh and just dial it in so that I can animate it quickly, that's just a lot easier. But to your point, like there may be instances where like if I start from a base mesh, will I get the proportions and volumes and have that ingrained in me? And probably not. You know, at least for me, if I start with a base mesh, I'm not going to learn volumes or proportions very well because it's already done for me, you know? So in that instance, maybe try to do a little bit of both. Maybe if you're doing production work, start with a base mesh and, you know, cheat. But it's production work, you know, you're getting paid to do a job and it's faster and more consistent if you start with a base mesh. If you're in production with other people who use the same base mesh, you know, you don't have a bunch of people starting with a clay sphere and then trying to head into production with God knows what scale or proportion or topology, right? But if you're just learning, then yeah, definitely start with a sphere and just use your observational skills and, you know, learn proportions and anatomy and landmarks and the curves and the contours and get that, do a lot of that too, and then, you know, use a base mesh when it makes sense. You know, I won't hate you if you use a base mesh. Don't feel too guilty. AI generated 3D meshes based on concept art. Yeah, I mean, it's only getting better, right? So, and, you know, and if you're a concept artist who can, you know, draw something and then have it rendered, you know, you could render an AI turntable and you could use photogrammetry to turn that into a mesh, or you could just have the AI kind of look at your image and then give you an approximation of a 3D mesh, and then you could take this into ZBrush and clean it up. I mean, that's probably pretty likely. If you think of something that's, if you see a new technology where you're like, hey, that would save me a lot of time and make my life easier, yeah, it's probably good. People are probably going to do it. Oh, and I got some good, you know, I'll give you some anatomy resources while we're here. It's been a while since we talked about that. Actually, that's what I'll do here in my YouTube channel. Since we're out of time, I'm over. Just search for anatomy and then anatomy volume perspective, écorché, like in any of these, organic sculpting and refine, anatomy block out from scratch, fun with anatomy. I'll just send you this link. Go through here, and any one of these I go through. In fact, I bet if you look at the wait, that's a video summary. Where's my, here we go. God, I don't know what I was thinking with that one. Usually what I'll do is in the description, like Vampire Anatomy. I'll usually try to, there it is, body live stream, fine. I'm trying to get you some links. Previous live stream projects, character creator. Oh no. Well, I was hoping I'd have, in some of these videos, I'll go through and I'll have links where it's basically like, here's oh, like a zygote body, you know, that kind of thing. So go through and watch those if you want. Even if you watch it like 2x speed, there's some anatomy resources in there you can check out. Cool. Thanks, everybody. I'll try to be awake more next time, and also try to get, I got some live streams I want to put on my channel, and ZBrush 2026, what's new stuff. So thanks, everybody.